Right, good afternoon, everybody. Sorry today's videos are a little bit late, but I've been teaching the critical worker bubble at school, so I've had to be rushing around today. I've even forgot to stick my beard on. No, I'm joking. I did trim it. It's getting a bit long. So today's story is the next part of the Twits. Can you remember what happened yesterday? We had or saw a little bit more of Mr. and Mrs. Twit's house, didn't we? Do you remember what was quite sad, quite boring about their house? Remember? Yeah, they didn't have any windows in their house, did they? Mr. Twit didn't want people staring at him while he was in his house. He didn't think about the other reasons for windows, which is letting the light in to make your house nice and bright. No, so he built his house with no windows. And then can you remember what Mrs. Twit grew in the garden? And what was quite unusual? What she grew them? What was the reason she grew those things? You remember? Well, it was all the spiky things, wasn't it? Like thistles and nettles and brambles, all those horrible spiky flowers. And the reason she grew them was to stop people going in her garden. Not that you would, I think. I think if you knew Mr. and Mrs. Twit lived there, you wouldn't even want to go near their house. But she put those things there to stop children getting in their garden, didn't she? So this today's chapter is called Four Sticky Little Boys. Ooh. On one Tuesday evening, after Mr. Twit had been up the ladder and smeared the tree with Hug-Tight, remember he was catching birds for bird pie day, wasn't he? Four little boys crept into the garden to have a look at the monkeys in the cage. They didn't care about the thistles and the stinging nettles, not when there were some exciting monkeys to look at. After a while, they got a bit bored of looking at the monkeys. The monkeys didn't really do very much. So they explored it further into the garden and found a ladder leaning up against the big dead tree. They decided to climb up that ladder just for some fun. Well, there's nothing wrong with that, is there? Well, the next morning, when Mr. Twit went out to collect the birds, he found four grumpy boys sitting in the tree, stuck as tight as could be by the bottom of their trousers to the tree's branches. There were no birds because the boys had scared them away. Mr. Twit was furious. "Well, as there's no birds for my bird pie tonight," he shouted, "it's going to have to be boy pie instead, isn't it?" He started to climb the ladder. "Boy pie might be better than bird pie anyway," he went on. "More meat and not so many tiny little bones to pick out of my teeth." The boys were terrified. "He's going to boil us up," cried one of the boys. "He's going to stew us alive," said another one. "He'll cook us with some carrots, I bet," cried the third one. But the fourth little boy, who was a bit cleverer than his friends, whispered something. "Listen, I've just had an idea. We're only stuck by the bottom of our trousers, so quick, undo the buttons and quickly jump out of them and run to the ground." Mr. Twit had got to the top of the ladder at this point and was just about to grab the first little boy when they all suddenly tumbled out the trees and ran home with their naked bottoms glistening in the sunshine. Look, there they are in the tree, all stuck by their trousers, and there they are out of the tree. Anyway, now to talk about the monkeys. The four monkeys in the cage in the garden were all one family. They were Mugglewump and his wife and their two small children. But what on earth were Mr. and Mrs. Twit doing with monkeys in their garden? Well, in the old days, they'd both worked in a circus as monkey trainers. They used to teach monkeys to do tricks and dress up in human clothes and do human things and all that sort of nonsense. There they are. Today, although they had retired, Mr. Twit still wanted to train monkeys. It was his great dream that one day he would own the first great upside-down monkey circus. That meant that the monkeys had to do everything upside down. They had to dance upside down, on their heads with their feet in the air. They had to play football upside down. They had to balance on top of each other upside down, with Mugglewump at the bottom, because he was the strongest, and Baby Monkey at the top. They even had to drink and eat upside down, and that's not an easy thing to do because the food and water has to go up your throat instead of down your throat. In fact, it's almost impossible. But the monkeys simply had to do it, otherwise they would starve. Now, all this sounds pretty silly to you and me, I know. It sounded pretty silly to the monkeys too. They absolutely hated having to do everything upside down, day after day. It made them dizzy, standing on their heads for hours. Sometimes the two small baby monkeys would faint, with so much blood going to their heads. Mr. Twit didn't care about that. He kept them practicing for 6 hours a day. And if they didn't do as they were told, Mrs. Twit would come running into the cage and smack them with her walking stick. Those poor family of monkeys. How mean they were. I don't know if you've ever tried to do something upside down, but it's hard. And even after a few minutes, you start to feel dizzy and a bit sick. So 6 hours a day, having to stand upside down, must be terrible for those monkeys. Right, I hope you enjoyed that part of the Twits. I'll be back tomorrow with the next part. Keep up with the home learning. It looks like you're working really hard this week, and it's really nice to see what you've been up to. Okay, see you tomorrow. Bye.